Some of the common errors that we see in the FAFSA, it gets really tricky with divorced or remarried parents on which parent actually has to put their information on the FAFSA. The rule is the parent the student lived with most during the 12 months prior to filing is the parent that should go on the FAFSA. If that parent is remarried, that step-parent's information also goes on the FAFSA. There is no way to not include that. We're not allowed as schools to make any kind of special consideration. Step-parent information is required. The reasoning behind that is they're looking at an overall family situation. So they're looking at how many people are in that household, how many people are in college, and the overall income coming in, not who's going to actually pay for the college expenses. So they're making allowances for providing for that family. They want to know how much income is coming in, so they get the correct allowances as well. Another question, they ask for the adjusted gross income, which is kind of the bottom line on the tax return, but they also ask for the income earned specifically from work for parents or step-parents. The reason they do this is partially to calculate the Social Security tax that is taken out and state taxes that are taken out. They also they give an allowance for parents. If there's one parent in the family and that parent's working, there's what's called an employment allowance built into the formula for that parent. If there's two parents working, the parents are married and both parents are working, there's an allowance for that as well. So it's to your benefit to report that separately. Make sure you don't lump it into just one parent. Report mom's income separate from dad's income. And you can usually find that on the W-2s for self-employed folks. It's usually on the business schedule. It's going to ask how much income tax was paid for that year. This is not the amount that's been withheld on W-2s. It's a specific line from the tax return that they're looking for. When you're filling out the FAFSA, it will tell you, depending on which type of tax return that you're filing, which line to look at. Make sure that you're reporting exactly what's on that line because that's what they are looking for. Again, with some of the family situations, sometimes household size is a challenge to figure out. You're looking for the student's parents once you figure out which parent you're using, the student, regardless of whether the student is still living at home or not, and then any other people that the parents are providing more than half of the support for. After that, you're going to look at any of those people that are reported, how many of those are in college, but other than parents, you cannot report a parent being in college on the FAFSA. Some schools are willing to take that into consideration on an individual basis, so if you have a parent in college, contact the schools you're looking at to see if that's something they're willing to consider. One that we've noticed more in the past year, and I don't know if it's placement on the FAFSA or something that they've changed, there's a question that asks if you're male or female, and that's used for the selective service registration match. And a lot of, when it's left blank and it's for a female, it causes some issues because it makes it think that that person needs to go through the selective service match, but for a female, they don't have to. So make sure that you answer that question, especially if you're female. It can cause some delays later on if you're not answering that question. Untaxed income is one of the things that sometimes that's not necessarily on the tax return, but they do want to know about some other kinds of income. There's a separate kind of worksheet that'll pull up for the untaxed income, and you might start looking at it going, I have no idea what any of this is. Look a little deeper. Some of the common ones that we do see people have that they might neglect to put on there are child support. They want to know what kind of child support is coming into the household. Again, that's because they're looking at an overall household financial picture. So that child support goes in there as money that's helping to pay for the household expenses, not the college expenses. If you're contributing to a retirement plan on a pre-tax basis, the amount you've contributed for that year goes on the tax return, or I'm sorry, on the FAFSA. They don't want to know the overall value of your retirement plan, just what you've contributed on a pre-tax basis for the year. And the first-time homebuyer credit, if any of you have taken advantage of that, that is considered income as well, so that needs to go on a separate line on the FAFSA. Some of the assets that people tend to report that they don't need to, as I mentioned before, the retirement plans, you don't report the overall value of your retirement. You also don't report the value of your primary residence. If you have a second home or a camp, they do want to know the value of that. That's considered to be an asset, but they don't want to know the value of your primary house. And again, the business value, if you have less than 100 full-time equivalent employees, that no longer needs to go on the FAFSA.